Hello everyone, this is LaVoy Finicum with One Cowboy Stand for Freedom. I recently posted a video where I spoke in general terms about defending the Constitution and standing for freedom. I think now I want to speak in a little more specifics, particularly about some of the bureaucracies that control our country. Our government, particularly our federal government, has created an empire inside of our country. This empire is controlled, managed, and directed by bureaucrats that are unelected and unaccountable to the people. Particularly, let's go with the Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM. And the BLM controls vast amounts of land and acreage. Put it in comparison, the land that they control is greater than many European nations. And so they've created this empire wherein it is managed by those who are appointed, who are hired. They are not elected. They have advisory boards where people may come hat in hand and ask for dispensations and favors. But they are not accountable to the people by the voice of the people. Don't get me wrong, there are some really, really good people that work within the Department of the Interior, particularly the BLM. I have several range cons that I work with that are just great individuals. I like them a lot. They're good people, good men. So I don't want to disparage their character or who they are. But that does not mean that the BLM is a legitimate and lawful organization, and I'll tell you why. You need to go to the Constitution, which is our supreme law of the land, and if you go into Article 1, Section 8, I believe it's paragraph 17, the Constitution specifically limits the amount of land that the federal government can own and control. The intent of the Constitution was to keep a centralized government from amassing power. You cannot amass great land and control it without amassing power. And that's what they've done. They've breached the intent of the Constitution. In paragraph 17, this is where our Constitution specifically lays out what lands the federal government can own and control. It says, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such districts not exceeding 10 square miles as may by secession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, meaning Washington, D.C., a seat where they can operate out of. Then it goes on, it says, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. In other words, they are also given right by the Constitution to purchase those real estates necessary for the defense of our country. Reasonable, appropriate, right. But nowhere did we give them, as people of this country, the right to control these vast lands, these vast amount of acreages that they control. It's illegitimate. It's illegal. And we need to understand that. We need to go to the simple boundaries that we set upon this government and hold them to this. Now Utah is making a noble fight to bring this dragon and put it back in its box. You have Mike Lee, the senator from Utah. You have the local legislatures like Ken Avery and Mike Noel doing a noble job in trying to fight this in the courts to require the federal government to uphold its responsibility to cede back these lands to the states. Oh, there's one other place where the federal government could control land, and that was in territories. But once a state became a territory, those lands were to be seceded back to the states. As they came out here and came further and further west, they began to realize that, it's hard to let go of this great wealth that is here. In one of my videos, I talked about here in this particular area, the great amount of wealth in the uranium that's here. Ken Avery talked about the other day that, naming 3 particular states here in the West, that there is recoverable oil equal to all the oil in the Middle East. And they have it locked up, tied up. You have to ask yourself why. But it needs to be given back to the people. But this fight that they're making, it's not going to succeed. It needs to be made so that people can be educated. But this federal government will not give back this land just because the states ask for it. They don't fear the states. They don't fear the people of the states, and they are not going to unentangle themselves from the control of this great wealth and these land masses. But you need to understand that that's the law. They're in violation of it. Now, I'm going to speak a little more specifically about these lawsuits that are going on and some of the other things, and I'll make that here in a moment. But for now, I'll end with that.